let's just say you're sitting there at the table at the summit on Friday, and President Trump says, hey, Michael, I know you're a bigwig in the industry. What's the number one thing I should and shouldn't do with this reserve? What would you say?
I would say the number one thing is lay down clarity amongst digital assets, because there's a lot of conflict and confusion because people misdefine the terms currency, commodity, security, token.
How do you think this crypto reserve will be financed?
I think the emerging consensus in the industry is that Bitcoin should be the element in a strategic reserve over the long term for the country. But if you wanted to support various investments in a sovereign wealth fund, that would be up to the executive branch.
Okay, so let's be clear. I'm hearing you say the reserve fund should really have the tested one, and that is Bitcoin.
And the important thing to keep in mind is Bitcoin is the one universally agreed upon foundational asset in the entire crypto economy, because it's the asset without an issuer. It's neutral. 99% of the energy and the capital has flown into that one. But I want to be clear that the U.S. has the opportunity to be the leader in digital assets if they have a progressive framework that supports currencies, securities, and tokens as well.
Michael Saylor stresses the importance of clear regulations in the digital asset space, advocating for Bitcoin as the foundation of a U.S. strategic reserve. He highlights Bitcoin's neutrality and lack of issuer, positioning it as a vital tool for economic empowerment and a secure digital savings asset. Saylor believes the U.S. can lead the global digital economy by adopting a transparent and progressive framework for cryptocurrencies. Saylor predicts significant growth in Bitcoin's value as institutional investors, governments, and corporations increase adoption. He likens Bitcoin to digital property, essential for the U.S. to capitalize on the digital economy. By acquiring Bitcoin strategically, the U.S. can secure economic stability and outpace global competitors. Addressing concerns over government involvement, Saylor argues that broader adoption benefits everyone, from individuals to nations. He sees Bitcoin as a transformative force, unlocking vast economic potential and fostering constructive policy engagement, ensuring prosperity in the evolving digital financial landscape.
Because everybody's dying to know about the summit and what they think is going to be announced. How do you think this crypto reserve will be financed?
Well, I think that there's a 6-month process that's been laid out by the executive order, and I think the president was fairly deliberate in that. There are 12 members on the Presidential Working Committee. There'll be involvement from the industry, there'll be involvement from the Senate and from the House, and it's above my pay grade to decide how it gets determined, but the Lummis bill has laid out the idea of acquiring Bitcoin strategically over 4 years, just consistently day by day, in order to reach a 1 million Bitcoin target.
So as the government purchases these Bitcoin and other tokens, what is that going to do to the price? I mean, supply goes down, the price goes up?
Well, the most responsible thing would be to go slow and steady and deliberate with clear telegraphing and transparency, so that the real key about Bitcoin is for people to understand that it's digital property. It's a savings account that empowers every single American to save their wealth and preserve it over time. And so what the government can do is to give clarity to the asset class and confidence to every American citizen, so they know they have an alternative to gambling and the stock market. I think the way to think about the industry is there's digital commodities, that's Bitcoin, an asset without an issuer. There's digital currencies like the stable coins. That's really important for US dollar supremacy in digital commerce. There are digital securities like tokenized stocks and bonds that will actually provide a capital efficiency and globalization for American securities. And then there are digital tokens, assets with issuers that provide digital utility that are very interesting and compelling. Their role is capital creation for the small and mid-sized companies that are blocked from the capital markets right now. I think that it's wise to capitalize a country or a company on a commodity, an asset without an issuer, something like a property. You could buy oil. Bitcoin is a commodity. I think that
XRP is attached to a company, Ripple.
I think that those are tokens, and we should have a regulatory framework to allow them to be issued, because
but in the reserve? Should they be in the reserve?
I think the emerging consensus in the industry is that Bitcoin should be the element in a strategic reserve over the long term for the country. But if you wanted to support various investments in a sovereign wealth fund, that would be up to the executive branch.
Okay, so let's be clear. I'm hearing you say the reserve fund should really have the tested one, and that is Bitcoin.
And the important thing to keep in mind is Bitcoin is the one universally agreed upon foundational asset in the entire crypto economy because it's the asset without an issuer. It's neutral. 99% of the energy and the capital has flown into that one. But I want to be clear that the U.S. has the opportunity to be the leader in digital assets if they have a progressive framework that supports currencies, securities, and tokens as well.
Michael Saylor emphasizes the necessity of regulatory clarity in the cryptocurrency sector, urging the U.S. government to adopt Bitcoin as a central component of its strategic reserve. He describes Bitcoin as a foundational, issuer-free asset that can serve as digital property, empowering individuals to preserve wealth and providing the U.S. with a competitive edge in the global digital economy. With a clear framework, he believes the U.S. can lead innovation in digital assets while ensuring financial stability. Saylor predicts that Bitcoin will see unprecedented adoption and value growth as governments, institutions, and companies recognize its importance. He highlights its role as a transformative asset in the digital economy, comparing its strategic acquisition to historical territorial expansions. For Saylor, Bitcoin represents not only a financial opportunity but also a pathway to long-term prosperity and economic leadership for the United States.
Let's just say you're sitting there at the table at the summit on Friday, and President Trump says, hey, Michael, I know you're a bigwig in the industry. What's the number one thing I should and shouldn't do with this reserve? What would you say?
I would say the number one thing is lay down clarity amongst digital assets because there's a lot of conflict and confusion because people misdefine the terms currency, commodity, security, token. And then once you've laid out that framework, if you decide to buy cyberspace, buy it deliberately, progressively, transparently. You know, the most important thing to understand is that we bought 75% of this nation with about $40 million. So the United States expanded west. We bought Louisiana, we bought California, we bought Texas, we bought Alaska. It's property. If you think of Bitcoin as property in cyberspace, and you say, where is all the money in the world headed? Well, it's headed from foreign countries, China, Russia. It wants to go to cyberspace. It wants to go from the physical world to the digital world. So if you think about Bitcoin as cyberspace, then the logic behind the Bitcoin strategic reserve is not so much you're storing up Bitcoin, it's really that you're taking control of planting the flag in cyberspace because the digital economy is going to be capitalized on Bitcoin. And if you get there first, before the AIs, before the foreigners, before the Europeans, the Africans, the South Americans, the Russians, and the Chinese, the U.S. can own it and benefit from it.
What would you say to the Bitcoin real believers, the real early acolytes who loved it because it doesn't attach itself to any government? And now the government, the U.S. government, is going to be buying it if this does get approved. How do you square that with the people who say, wait, I don't want the U.S. government involved in this?
Satoshi gave us a protocol for prosperity. That's what we call Bitcoin. And it was a great opportunity for empowerment for 8 billion people. But also, there are 400 million companies that need it. There's also every country on earth that needs it. So it's logical that a country that is interested in economic empowerment and prosperity is going to adopt Bitcoin in the same way that a company like mine, in the same way that an individual would. There's no way to interpret this other than this is bullish for Bitcoin and is bullish for the entire U.S. crypto industry. I think it's worth $100 trillion to the United States. And as the market gets more educated, we're going to see more progressive, constructive policy engagement. You know me, for the last 4.5 years, I'm willing to talk about Bitcoin to anybody, anywhere in the world, every day.
Michael Saylor highlights the growing importance of Bitcoin in the global economy and its potential as a cornerstone of a U.S. strategic reserve. He emphasizes the need for regulatory clarity to distinguish between digital currencies, commodities, securities, and tokens. Saylor believes that Bitcoin, as a neutral and issuer-free asset, is uniquely positioned to empower individuals and nations alike, enabling economic stability and growth. He also stresses the significance of the U.S. adopting a progressive framework to lead in the rapidly evolving digital asset space. As the crypto industry matures, Saylor predicts a monumental surge in Bitcoin adoption, driven by governments, institutions, and corporations seeking its financial and strategic benefit. He envisions a future where Bitcoin plays a pivotal role in wealth creation and economic empowerment, urging policymakers and investors to act deliberately and transparently. This transformative potential could position Bitcoin as the digital foundation of the next economic era. 1. Do you think Bitcoin should be a central component of a national reserve? Why or why not? 2. How do you see regulatory clarity shaping the future of cryptocurrencies globally? Answer in the comments below.